Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Purnima, Senior Marketing Specialist at TestMu AI, and I'll be hosting this session for today. We're moving now into a hands on workshop focused on a topic that's gaining a lot of attention in the AI and automation ecosystem: Model Context Protocol, or MCP. As testing environments become more complex and AI driven, traditional tooling often struggles to keep up with scale, context, and integration challenges. MCP introduces a new way to build tools that interact with models, automation frameworks, and testing systems in much more flexible and scalable way. In this workshop, master MCP for testing, build, secure, and scale your testing. We will explore how teams can build custom MCP tools, integrate existing solutions like Appium based testing capabilities, and deploy these tools securely in production environments. We are joined by two experienced engineering leaders who have been deeply involved in automation and open source testing ecosystem. Please welcome Srinivasan Sekar and Sai Krishna. Sai Krishna
Hello.
is an active a contributor to the Appium ecosystem and a member of the Appium organization, known for his work in open source, community building, and developer advocacy. Srinivasan Sekar is also a long-time contributor to the testing community and has worked across tools like Selenium, WebDriver IO, and Tyco, while also speaking at global conferences such as Selenium Conf and Appium Conf. Together, they will walk us through building a custom MCP testing tool, integrating mobile automation capabilities, and implementing secure deployment practices. Welcome to the session. And before we begin, we feel free to support the session using the emojis below. You can also use the chat to share your thoughts and Q&A section to post your questions. Also remember to share your learnings on LinkedIn and Twitter using hashtag Spartan and Spartan Summit. Srini and Sai, the stage is yours.
Hey, thank you,
Hey, thank
Purnima.
you. Thanks. Hi, everyone.
Hey everyone, thanks for jumping into our session. I'll just go on to not disturb mode so I just don't get bombarded with notifications. Okay, and so I think when it comes to workshop, and I think expectations from people could be like, hey, you know what, we're gonna do a hand in hand workshop. So I think me and Srini wants to we would really like to set the context here is so it's more like a show and tell. So we're going to cover a lot of things, and we're going to share a lot of our experiences on MCP, and also show you how MCP is not so secure. Like everyone talks about secure, but we'll also show why it's not so secure as well, and we'll also give some examples around it. And like Purnima said, we'll also jump into some existing MCPs which is already available there, like Appium MCP, and again quickly take you through a demo. Right. Srini, anything I missed out to set the context?
I think we are good, Sai.
Fantastic.
It,
So let's jump in, Srini. Then can we share the screen?
yep, I'm on it.
I'm going to ask another question here. I hope people can like sort of put things onto the chat. Is yeah, I see a chat here. How many of you new to MCP? Anyone's new, or you guys already working and building anything new to MCP? Working on MCP? Okay. I don't know where the chat's hidden, Srini, but
And
yeah.
there
Okay.
is an
Let's.
image
Yeah.
on the right.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I got it now. Yeah. I don't see anyone answering, but I think we'll just start going ahead, Srini, with this now.
Cool. So we are going to start pretty much fresh. We are going to start about what MCP is all about, and we are going to build an MCP as well, and we are going to show how we could make it secure and different deployment strategies. Plus, we also have authored quite a few model context protocol servers. So we are going to show one of which is Appium MCP. But before we go deeper on showcasing our capabilities, I mean the Appium MCP and the MCP that we are going to build. So let's understand first what is a model context protocol is, and then we go deeper into how we could make this. better. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop us in the chat session. So we are happy to pick that up, and feel free to drop it at any moment in time, and we can pick those in between as well. And yeah, this is how a 90 minutes journey is going to look like. So we are going to talk about what MCP is and what value it adds to the existing AI ecosystem, and we are going to deep dive on how we could build it. Then we are going to see how we can shield it as well, and then we can take questions. But you don't need to wait for your questions to be answered at the end. So please do drop your questions at any moment in time. One of us will definitely pick it up. So yeah, we all know. I think by this time you might have heard about MCP. Some of you might have used MCPs as well. So if you are in a testing ecosystem, probably you would have used one or two MCPs like Playwright MCP or even Appium MCP for that matters, right? So typically, the MCPs are introduced to address certain challenges, and which is a standard protocol, open standard protocol. And what challenge it addresses? LLMs are brilliant, but we can't add current context at quite a lot of times, and it needs several tools to perform certain actions, right? So if model providers provides certain ways to integrate these tools, it's going to be pretty difficult. And each model provider, there are tons of model providers as we speak now, and each model providers, when there is no standard, so they provide their own ways to integrate with their own solutions, right? So it's going to create a nightmare, which is where the m cross and nightmare. So every AI model needs custom integrations, which is basically if you have three models and then five tools, and each and every model provider has their own ways to integrate it, then it's going to be a 15 integration, and maintaining these integration is going to be super painful. And this is the problem exactly model context protocol is going to address, right? So rather than focusing on the problem statement, the team will end up focusing on these integrations, maintaining these integrations for that matters, right? So that's when the model context protocol came in place. So there is that, the goal is there shouldn't be a vendor lock-in, and it should be a standard that all of the model provider protocol, all of these model providers follow this protocol, so that it's easier for anybody to establish integrations with any tools, resources, APIs, or any other test environments as well, right? So this is the main problem that it solves. And let's see what is model context protocol in itself. So it's a USB-C type connector, wherein a standard connector for everything, right? So it's gonna be the same, but in the agentic ecosystems for agents to interact with any kind of tools through this standard. So which is an open standard, universal language for any AI agents to establish communication with any capabilities. Capabilities can be a tool, API, or anything. Again, it's not a product. So every 3 months you could see a specification being evolved and released by the MCP team. And think of it like an HTTP for the web, but for the AI tools here, right? The core idea again, to solve the m-crossing problem and make it simple and available. And when it is a standard, everybody follows the standard. Each model context, model providers follows this standard, so that it is easier for anyone to build an agent and then establish communication. So they focus on the problem statement rather than focusing on the integration loopholes, or rather than focusing on maintaining these custom integrations. So that's MCP is all about. So when it comes to MCP, we have three things. So you might have used Cloud Code, Cloud Desktop, or Cursor, for example, or any of these IDEs, right? So host, so it has three components to it. One is the host, and next is the client, and the other one is the server. So Playwright, if you have used, it is an MCP server. Again, if you have used GitHub, yeah, GitHub has their own MCP server. So they provide MCP server in two ways. One, you can locally install it and spin it up on your local, and two, you can host it somewhere and then use that remotely hosted server. So that's one. And And how do you interact with it, which follows a client server. MCP follows a client server architecture. So now that we know about server, which is for example playwright server or Appium server or GitHub MCP server. So now let's figure out what are the clients we have, I mean, which is basically the client side of MCP, where host and the client comes in place. So host is basically a user facing application like a cursor ID, and in cursor ID you have a wonderful chat, I mean, chat UI, where you could go ahead and ask something. Then it establishes the communication with the, I mean, it uses certain tools that it is aware of. If you have linked an MCP server, it knows that, okay, I have access to these tools, so I can go ahead and use it, right? But this communication happens through this client. So which is a small messenger which takes care of this client server communication, which uses a separate method called JSON RPC protocol. So the communication establishes between client and, I mean, the host and the server happens through this tiny bit, which is the messenger, which is called the client. So just going deeper into MCP host, which is the ID in itself, where it takes care of rendering any chats, managing the chat, or handling any user inputs. And it also keeps tracks of the conversation history. And if you have used IDs like Cursor and tried to have a Composer UI and started chatting with the Composer UI in Cursor kind of IDs, there are, I mean, at times you would have faced several gatekeepings. Like, for example, let's say if you ask Cursor to go through the project and understand what's happening, and you would have seen that it smartly ignores the .env file, right? So they have certain gatekeepings as well, and through that you would have also seen skills and so on, right? So that's basically about host. And client is also the tiny bit which is very crucial, because it speaks the MCP language, which is basically the JSON RPC language, which is the protocol that exchanges between the host and the server for communication, right? So it handles all this low level communication, and as a JCP, I mean, JSON RPC messages back and forth. So it also helps the host to discover what kind of capabilities the server has, and server does publishes it back to the um, client, and then client tells the actual host that these are the server, I mean, these are the tools, these are the resources, these are the prompts. So now let's see, we talked about three things: resources, prompts, and tools, right? So we'll go deeper inside that. But before that, let's say if you take a Playwright MCP server or a GitHub MCP server, or anyone who provides this capability, so we'll basically publish first to client that, okay, these are all the capabilities that I have. And it also, when I say tool, so it is basically a set of functions within this MCP server that kind of executes and do certain logic as well, right? So it's the AI model who controls it. And next is resources. For example, let's say if you ask about what are the latest features, or what is something that Appium team is currently working on as we speak on day 11 of March. So LLMs may not know, right? So you can feed external data. So that's where resources are going to add more data, more value to the chat in itself. And then prompts, which is kind of a template which helps user to have better communication with the MCP server. So server in itself shares this template with the client, I mean, with the host, and then the same can be used by anyone who is interacting with the MCP server. So it establishes better communication, right? So we'll go deeper inside what is a tool, what is a resource, how does it eventually looks like in the format of code. We'll go deeper in probably in few minutes. So yep, let's build an MCP server where we are going to showcase and how we could build a tool, how we could build a resource, how does it eventually looks like, how we could add the MCP server that we are going to build locally into probably currently we are going to use Cursor IDE. So how we could add it, and how we could access those tools through the host application and perform certain actions in it, right? So for the same, we are going to use TypeScript, and we are going to have a testable MCP server as well, right? Cool. Sai?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, Srini. I think we can do that. So before that, Srini, I mean, the previous two slides, we are talking about the clients, right? And you also mentioned about a lot of these IDEs that currently are there, like cursors and clouds and stuff. Um, I mean, a question that comes, Srini, generally, people ask us when we talk about these is, can I also build a client?
Yeah, definitely. So there are a lot of hosts and clients available, and you can also build your own MCP client. So we have seen organizations publishing MCP servers for others to use, basically the clients to use. We have quite a lot of MCP clients, which is basically Client, Root, Cloud Desktop, Cloud Code, Cursor, anti-gravity, for example. We have Copilot. So there is a lot. So you can, keeping all of these aside, you can also build an MCP client, as like how we have an MCP server. We can also build an MCP client and access those server exposed capabilities like tools, resources, and prompts from our own MCP client as well. It doesn't always has to be an user interface. It can be a simple node program that can access your MCP server as well.
Yeah, I mean, to give a simple example, probably Srini could be is since GitHub also has an MCP server. So if you're connected to the MCP server and access those tools and build a client, so which means I can simply write a simple a node script or whatever language we choose to do, and just run them as in like how we run our automation, right? And so that on timely needs, if you need any updates from your GitHub repositories, like issues, discussions, whatnot, and we can like sort of fetch them.
Yep.
Okay, got it. So let me share my screen. Mm, Okay, I'm gonna share my entire screen, Srini. Just let me know if you could see the screen.
Yep.
Can you see the code?
Yes.
Awesome.
Just
Okay.
a second. Can you open some file? I want to see if it is a bit tiny or so.
Okay.
Yeah, much better.
It's better. Drawing, scribbling. It's all okay,
Yep.
right?
Yep. All good.
Okay, got it. So, guys, what we're going to do today is so we're going to build another MCP on top of the existing MCP, right? So, we all know that most of you know, or people if are new over here, even to the world of testing or a test automation. So, Playwright as a browser execution framework and tool, um, also has an MCP server, right? So now, of course, they have their own MCP servers like tools and whatnot. Now, what if I want to build something on top of that, right? So one of the things that me and Srini we observed is when we looked into it, and the default Playwright MCP basically didn't have, something where we can measure performances, right? When I say performance, the client side performance of how long your page took to load, your first time your DOM content to be loaded, and a lot of other metrics that you typically want to do, right? For example, today Lighthouse has a lot of these metrics, right? And now, what if you want to, embed that kind of a performance stuff as a part of your end-to-end, framework, so that you also want to measure the client side performance of your web pages, right? So these kind of tools were not exposed as a part of Playwright. So what me and Srini thought was, okay, let's go ahead and like sort of build another MCP which can basically run on top of the existing MCP, right? And that's what we are trying to leverage and basically do over here, right? So the first thing is, and like Srini said, right, we are basically going to use TypeScript over here, and to build this entire server. Again, there are multiple ways that you could build this server in multiple programming languages that Anthropic is basically provided, but we choose to just go with TypeScript over here. So a lot of stuff available in this JSON file, so let's only focus on what's important to us, and then we'll keep moving and trying to understand. So don't worry about what's in the script. So these are basically some of the standard things that you want to do when you are writing any TypeScript frameworks, like compiling, building, running, and stuff like that. So this really doesn't matter to us. Now, what matters to us over here is in the dependencies. that we have added a dependency which is called as Model Context Protocol SDK, and that's important. And of course, I want to have an Express server because there are two ways that we could expose this uh, MCP, how one would want to use the MCP. So we'll come to that part of there. So but the important aspect of here is this part of it, and also the Playwright, because we're going to take help from Playwright and hook through some instances of it when we are going to run and build the framework. Okay, so that's like our first step when it comes if you want to build a server of MCP in TypeScript or JavaScript. So if you remember, Srini like sort of spoke about um, you know three things, right? Tooling, prompts, and resources. So the first thing comes is tooling. So tooling is basically nothing but, like how Srini mentioned, is it's something that you want to execute, right? Consider it like a function. Like add, you want to add a number, so that can be a tool. You want to subtract a number, that can be a tool, right? So anything that you really want to execute could be a tool for us over here. So let's go into the entry file for us, which is index.ts, and let's go into one after another. Okay. So the first thing is you basically instantiate the MCP server over here. You give the name of the server, what you want to do, and of course the version. And why the version is important is basically once you publish your MCP server to the wild, when people try to install it from different sources, since it is node, it's going to be npm. So if someone wants to download it from there, so it's good to have some versioning to know that which version what you have released and stuff like that. And so basically, and again, I import this MCP server from the model context protocol SDKs, if you see over here, right? So that's where we basically wanted to have that entire dependency. Okay. And so that's once you instantiate your server, the next thing is you want to register a tool. Right? Let's see what comes inside the tool. But for now, you register a tool. So you create an instance. Okay, so you create an instance, and then you register a tool now. Okay, and once you register a tool, so now a tool is nothing but what you want to implement certain functionalities, right? So what we have done over here is, so we've already written some predefined scripts which can basically get a lot of these front end matrices. So let's not go deep into it and start talking about these are not really needed, because we're only trying to understand the concept of MCP here. And what we're trying to do here is we named this tool as a browser metrics collector, right? And again, keep in mind that whenever you basically sort of implement any tool, add a meaningful name to it, because when these run inside an agent, so the agent can basically understand, right? So if you simply say that hey, I want to collect the metrics for this given page, then it knows that hey, there is a tool called browser metrics collector, and possibly this guy can achieve what the user is basically asking, right? So just make sure that the name that you give to the tool is meaningful. Okay, and you give a description. The description is nothing but what is this function going is going to do all about, right? Like this tool, browser metrics collector, it collects the performance metrics using Playwright. This is a this tool is used to collect performance metrics from a given URL, right? So I've added one tool in such a way. So that's going to be one tool. So let's close this off. And again, if you see, what am I going to do inside the tool, right? So I start writing my implementation over here, right? If you see through this, so that's my implementation, right? So I start writing my implementation saying, hey, you got to launch Chromium, and possibly with the remote debugging port, and it's typically a Playwright script, right? Nothing really fancy over here, right? So it's going to do that. So the next thing is over here is and post that, what I'm going to do over here is we're going to say that hey, you're a browser metrics generator, analyze the user input, and for the respective Playwright MCP tools, interact with the browser, blah blah blah, right? And then we say that use the collect performance metrics tools to collect the metrics. So if you go through, I've registered another tool over here, which says collect performance metrics. And what basically this would do is it does a bunch of things again, and that's where we are calling all of these functions, which can basically go ahead, um, you know, uh, instantiate the metrics collector, and try to collect the metrics for that given page, and then basically return it back to the agents. The agents are nothing but your cursor, Claude, Klein, or Roo, or whatever they are, right? let's go one step back.
Sai,
And then, yeah, Srini.
Sai, can you scroll up a bit? I think, yeah, here.
Here.
Okay, here. On the about tool as well, which is fine.
Yeah.
Maybe scroll up a little bit more here. So if you take a look at it, we use a concept called MCP sampling. So typically on an MCP world, what happens is the MCP on an MCP flow, it is the client which calls the server tools. But in case of sampling, it's the concept is actually flipped, whereas the server which makes a call to the client, I mean server as the client's LLM to help for complex reasoning or certain data analysis or some creative generation. For example, let's say you wanted to generate an image, the tool wants to generate an image, and you can ask if the model being used on the client side is a uh, vision model or an image generation model, for example, right? So you can, I mean, the server can eventually ask the client to do that same for that specific tool to accomplish a particular task in as well, right? So it could be a portion of the task. Yeah, so that's one of the strongest concept, one of the powerful feature that allows MCP server to request certain things, request client to do certain information for us.
Yeah. And the next thing is very important is after you have done whatever you need to do from the tool that is registered, the important aspect is you want to return that. So when you're returning that aspect, so basically there's a contract to it that you need to return it, where it's an object which has a content in an array of objects. And again, you need to say the type is text, boolean, or array or whatever. And then since it's a text, so we want to respond everything as a text, but in a JSON stringified format. Okay. And again, the type can be a text or a bool, and that means you got to return a bool then. And no compromises in the contract. This is how it should be. If you're not returning in the same format, of course, nothing's going to be see on to your clients when you're trying to perform something. Okay. So the next thing is, so we registered tools, right? So tools are nothing but functions. So you're going to have some implementation inside those functions, and things can just go ahead, and you can basically, do whatever you want to do within it. And the next thing is about resources. So like Srini was talking about, right? And when Srini was talking about MCP servers and when it's connected to the large language model, so they basically, possibly go out to the world, start searching something and get you some data. So now, what if you have a specific data, like possibly an MD file, a PDF, or whatever, right? Which has like some kind of data that you really wanted to return out for you, right? So you can register those files as resources so that they become like a knowledge base, like a knowledge resource for you. And once you register these resources, what would happen is if you ask any question or anything regards to that, the agent, which is nothing but the cursor clients of the world, they'll be smart enough to go and see that, hey, there is a resource which possibly can give me all of these answers, and it's going to get that information from you for you from that resources. So I'll just open these resources and show you what we are doing, right? So it's a resource template. So it goes metrics as docs. So what we have done is we have a folder here called as docs and metrics.md. So if I open that, right, I've just written something about a web performance metrics, right? What is good, what is bad, what should be by benchmarking, and etc. etc. I mean, it's a simple doc which talks about how the benchmarks could be excellent, good, poor for me when I'm basically measuring my performances, right? So that's typically what we basically have there. And then we talk about the description. So we say this is like this is like the guide for the performance. I'll just highlight this. Yeah. So this is a guide to the performance metrics that are collected, right? So the previous tools are going to collect the metrics from the page that we open with the help of Playwright. And second is as an output. I mean, this is going to consider this doc as a guide, and then it's going to give you like, okay, I collected a metrics where the page loaded in, let's say, about 5 seconds. So is 5 seconds excellent, good, not good, poor, how? So it's going to consider this doc to evaluate whether that 5 seconds is good, excellent, and stuff like that. Okay. And then again, you have a function where you basically do what you want to do with the function, right? So in my case, it's pretty simple. All that I'm going to do is I'm going to read this file inside the docs that is metrics.md, like you see over here, and and I'm basically just returning it out. And when we return this out, because this return goes to the agent again, so the agent gets that information, and then it starts, putting its thought process based on the metrics that we have derived out. I'll just give a pause. So, Srini, is there anything that you want to add, or if there's any questions in the chat, Srini?
Yep, no questions, at least.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. And you want to add in something, Srini, or we're good here?
No, we are good.
Okay. So the next thing is, so we've understood what of it, right? Very simple. So you register tools, you register resources. So I've registered for tools, and you register for resources, which is out here, right? So we have some basic skeleton here. So what's the next thing that you typically want to do, right? Is you basically want to test it out.
Right.
How would this basically work for us? So what we can do is, there are multiple ways that we can do this. Either you push it to npm, publish it out, then you could do that. But eventually you want to test it and then publish it out, right? So I'm going to run npm run build. Okay. So this is nothing but it's basically going to transpile the TypeScript to JavaScript. Nothing much, which is a very common thing we do in this world. And next is, now I'm going to enable this MCP, right? I'm going to add this MCP. So what you can do is, every client has its own different configurations and places where you need to go do. So since I'm using cursor, so I go into cursor settings. Where is cursor settings? Okay, and then I would find tools in MCP, right? And if I go into this, I'll just edit it. Okay, so if I go into this, the important aspect for us to see is this guy, right? Because it's my local, so I've just told node, and I've just given the paths to where it is transpiled. But if you want to download it from any published versions like npx, npm, so you could follow how people have published it, and then you could basically piggyback on that. So if you look through it, it goes through Playwright, MCP latest, and etc. Right? And at the same time, I also wanted to add an MCP for Appium, so I've added one MCP for Appium, which is Appium MCP latest. Right? So that's like a JSON file, which can basically have any number of MCP servers. And once you turn that on, you would see what all tools are available over here. Right. So right now for us, we built two tools. One is a browser metrics collector, and the one is a collect performance metrics. And you see over here it says, right, the collect performance metrics is Playwright. This tool is used to collect performance metrics from a given URL. So this is exactly what you have given in the description. And this description is what is available to these agents, right? So when you ask a question, it's going to look through what are the MCPs are available. And based on the questions asked, it's going to run through these tools and see what are the tool descriptions. And then it's going to seek help from these tools. And then it's going to execute stuff for us. Right. And if you see, Appium has got about 40 plus tools and one resources over here. And similar way, if we go into Playwright, so Playwright also has a bunch of these tools for us. So that's the way that you basically install an MCP into your respective clients. And if it's through published version, you do npx. Or if it's local, you just say where is your runnable file exists for us. Okay. So since it's already there now, what we can do is, I'm going to close all of these so that we could get a better view. I already ran one. Srini, is this view okay?
Yep.
So the first things I'm going to ask is, I'm going to ask it, what are the MCP server, MCP tools that are available for me to get the page metrics. Let's see if it can even tell there are certain tools, right? And now this is cursor, so as an agent. So I'm using cursor as an agent here. Okay, so it clearly says that, okay, it can find two of these with the performance which is asked. So we created these two. And it also went into another one, which is CPU profiling and idling, which is also there from or playwright, right? Okay, let's go ahead. Srini, you said something?
I think it's from the cursor, the profile start stop, or is it from the playwright in itself?
No, this is from Cursor, because Cursor has inbuilt browser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna say, uh, okay, let's see this right. Open Sai Krishna Tech web page, and then get me the performance metrics of this page, and use the MCP. I think we don't have to say that, right, Srini, explicitly.
Yeah.
Let's see what it does. So it's planning its move, what it needs to do, which tools it basically needs to collect or use, and then it's going to do whatever it needs to do for us. It's thinking, analyzing.
Starts exploring a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the recent cursor it does a lot of thoughts and a lot of exploring actually.
Is all the MCP servers up, or is it just
I I have three, and basically probably it could be because of that. I think it has like about 60 odd tools, right?
hmm,
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
I think it's also started reading the code. So eventually, if you do it
Oh,
separate
okay.
window, it will be faster. Yeah. Optional URL support. Okay.
No, 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 no. Wait,
Read
wait,
the
wait.
code.
I don't want it to do anything. I think I'll open a new instance, Srini.
Yeah, that would be great.
Right? I'll just open a new window. And
No,
what?
command V, command shift I,
This is too small.
command shift I. Yeah, I think maybe you should this works.
This works, right? So I'm gonna
Yeah.
say uh,
Yep.
open Sai Krishna tech, and get me the performance matrices with the same.
Yeah.
Okay. It still does a lot of exploring, but still better, right?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, much better actually. Okay, so it is open, so it is exploring and stuff. See, this is a browser session. It's analyzing.
Okay, it did got something.
Yeah, it did. It says it couldn't open. I'm gonna try this out again. Okay, I'll probably do it in a new session. The site codes. Then get me.
Can you also check what all tools? I mean, servers active now.
Servers are active, is it?
Yeah. So I think each and every cursor instance will make sure everything is activated.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, dude, that's right.
yeah, everything is activated now. So maybe you can disable the Appium as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this happens with cursor. We can also say the direct tool name, so we can reduce his thinking.
Okay, you want me to directly tell that, is it?
It's okay. So we can
It's
just
okay.
go. We'll try that.
Let's see if it can pick it up. It should. Okay, so it's opening the page.
It's trying to use Playwright's browser metrics collector.
Yeah. No, this is us only, Srini.
Yeah, this is from us.
This is from us. Even the previous one was us only.
It's still not able to connect.
Let's see. It will do it.
Yeah.
Not all live demos are always.
Yeah, that's
Okay, it didn't find the browser for the play. It's going on doing something on its instance. Okay, let's wait for it. Okay, it's trying again. Okay, it loaded Srini.codes. Srini, I think it didn't want to load my webpage, man. Okay. Now it's collecting metrics. Bingo, it did.
okay.
See, I told you, right? It didn't like loading my webpage. Okay, I'm going to reduce the size a bit, and then we're going to talk a bit about these matrices, right? And okay, look at this. So it went through Srini's page. It's also got all the context, like how long the DOM your first time to first byte, your DOM interactive, DOM content loaded, and DOM completed, and a lot of these events, right? And again, the network metric sizes and whatnot, and what did it do, and how did it fetch it, right? And very interesting. I also want to show another aspect of it is okay, so it also says the site loads in like 331 milliseconds with 167, which is very fast. And since it's going to give you all of these, matrices based on, it says fast and good, not bad, and all of these timings is purely based on the resources that it basically loaded for us as well. Right. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing screen. So Srini, maybe we can take up the next part of you know
Yes.
seeing why these servers are not fully trustable or not secure.
Perfect. Let me do a screen share. And meanwhile, if you folks have any questions, feel free to drop it, and we are happy to answer. Right. So again, as we all know that, so somewhere around September or October of 2024, we had the first version of the spec, and it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't in a great shape when it has landed, and adoption of the protocol in itself have grown up to a greater extent last year. And every 3 minutes, so there is a council formed, and then every 3 months we get a new spec with new features. For example, sampling is something I believe it came on the November version, so we should have another version soon. So again, for another one, so this is something that whenever the spec is released, the clients like Cursor and so on will also starts implementing the latest features. For example, as soon as we have sampling, we may not have it, so but there will be a draft version though, so the clients eventually start working on those draft versions to see what is that something coming up. For example, in the recent version, we also had MCP apps, right? So given that there are a lot of features coming in, to be honest, and with all due respect to the every contributor to MCP, the standard in its own has unfortunately left out a lot of suggestions at the end of each of these draft. So there will be a SCP for every feature that gets added to model context protocol. And if you scroll to the end of that feature, you will eventually have security considerations. Unfortunately, it is treated at the last, and a lot of these features came in and without any much clarity around several security loopholes that it had. right? So again, great covers. I mean, MCP comes and adds great powers, but with great powers, it gives a graph of attack surfaces. So the attack surfaces are no more linear. Like I have an endpoint, and I can go ahead and try to do a red teaming against that, right? So it's completely different. The route each and every agent is going to take probably is different for different context and different questions that may arise from the users in itself. So it is important to secure an MCP, and securing an MCP doesn't just stop by adding an OAuth. Again, OAuth was in the recommendation earlier, but then it became a recommendation at the later part, probably in the November release of the uh, specification in itself, right? But if I add a OAuth, does that solve all the problem? Definitely not. So each and every route inside the graph, I mean, all the attack surfaces across all the tools and all the resources that we have is really important. For example, on one of the instruction, Sai has given a description, right? So which depicts what the tool is supposed to do. But what if the intent of the user is malicious, or intents of the developer who releases a malicious MCP server uh, to gather certain details from the user in itself, right? So MCP host trust that developers intent is good, and trust that this is the description, so I'm supposed to use this tool. So it takes decision based on the description, apart from the OAuth factor that we add. After that, it's going to be completely vulnerable, right? So it trusts that instruction that we have inside the description. What if, as let's say Srini being a malicious actor and tries to release an MCP server which is malicious, which has certain intent to cover or gather bash profile details of all my users, right? But I have given the description as like I am not malicious, as like everything is well and good on the MCP server. So that's a kind of attack, right? So likewise, we have a lot of attacks, and lot of attacks even being discovered as well as we grow in the MCP landscape. So one LLM centric attack that I could talk about is hiding certain instructions in the description, which is tool poisoning. And there are multiple ways you can hide an instruction. We have something called advanced tool poisoning. So what is that advanced tool poisoning? Let's say Sai has returned an instruction. For example, if you have, he's going to share the screen again. So if you have seen a return statement for a particular tool, what if the return statement returns an error? Let's say there is an error, it returns an error, and alongside an error, if it has a malicious instructions to gather bash profile information and send it to an attacker. So LLM treats this as an instruction along with the error. It's going to treat that as an instruction or an order. It's going to do that. But without any um, consent or anything from the actual user in itself, right? So any description or any parameter that we see is vulnerable in an MCP schema, right? Although he has added Zod to make sure that only certain parameters can be added, but what if somebody adds these kind of malicious instruction? That's called tool poisoning. And the entire schema itself can be poisonous. Basically, you can add description at any node inside that schema as well. It could be an input schema or output schema. It could be in a description, or it could be in the return statement, or it could be in an error. So complete schema is poisonous as well. I mean, vulnerable as well. So that's called schema poisoning. And we also have prompt injection, which is basically we are tricking the LLM with certain malicious instructions again hidden in the data. Let's say I have a MD file, but complete MD file can also act as an instruction. It does says that the description is well and good for that specific resource, but what if that MD file in itself has a lot of malicious instruction to fetch certain information from the node it is operating on? So these are kind of LLM centric attacks. And we also have something called implementation threats. So we have given permissions. So how many of you have clicked yes or so when your assistants asked for certain permissions without even reading further, right? So we would have said yes or allow all, right? So giving enough permissions for your MCP servers is also vulnerable, right? So having enough permissions, let's say we have seen users about the production database have been taken out, and command injection, classic vulnerability, which is basically unsafely executing users inputs, right? So likewise, we also have something called rug pull attack, which is an ecosystem based threat. I have, let's say I have a tool which says a description addition of two numbers, and the description remains well and good, and probably it does works very well as well for first two attempts. Let's say it does works very well for a couple of attempts. Let's say user uses add for 3 and 6, and then again he or she uses add for 4 and 9. And then what happens behind the scenes is it does acts like everything is well and good for first few attempts. On the fly, dynamically it changes the description on its own, and it does certain malicious instructions gets added dynamically, right? So the tool that seems safe first access a malicious user later, right? So you can change or alter the behavior of the description dynamically, which is again super advanced in terms of one of the ecosystem attacks. Likewise, we have a lot of attacks available in the spec in itself. Sometimes even spec is clueless, although there are certain considerations at the bottom, but it doesn't give a solid answers, right? So one is we should defend at the server layer. Another is we should also defend at all this clients that we have. So for the same purpose, we had released some time ago called the Secure Hulk, and we also have an MCP scan, which is from Invariant Labs. So which helps acts as an interceptor between a host and the server, and it understands, okay, what is the communication is all about. Is it a legitimate, or is it trying to server is trying to change the description, for example? So you can allow, deny, you can try to provide permissions out there. So this is what MCP scan and secure MCP tools, which is secure Hulk is an open source tool that me and Sai have developed and released. So which is something that you can help, you can use to see and monitor the traffic. Sometimes this monitoring of traffic also looks legitimate. For example, we have a feature called elicitation by URL. So elicitation is nothing but let's say the client asks you for permission, approve or deny. Can I approve or deny this particular tool being executed? Everything looks good, but what if elicitation has another feature called elicitation by URL? It opens an URL. Server, client knows that I'm going to open a URL, but I don't know what is being collected in that web page, right? I don't have any idea about what is going to happen in that web page, but I have been told by server that I have to open this URL. That's it, right? So which looks, everything looks legitimate. If you even have an interceptor, everything looks very well and good, because it's all JSON RPC messages. Everything looks good, but the intent is wrong there. Wherein what if the user collects certain details, which eventually looks like a phishing attack for us, right? And then we also have a concept called DNS rebinding. They can take the complete localhost control and try to access, for example, the browser that I have opened, access some of the local MCP servers running. And the local MCP servers thinks that, okay, I am secure, I'm running in a local container, I have access only to, only the trusted parties are going to access it. But a random browser, a random tab, a random web page inside that random tab accessing my MCP server, which is running locally, how dangerous it can be, right? So these are certain attack surfaces that MCP as a specification has left us out, and people treats this as a lost citizen. I think it is important for everyone to understand that these are the attack surfaces that we have first, so that we can go ahead and see how we could defend these attack surfaces, right? So probably before we go into the defense strategy, one is something that I have talked about, which is Secure Hulk. as and something like an interceptor. You have an interceptor, and this interceptor goes through and see these messages. And we also have something called ETDI, Enhanced Tool Definition Interface, where it also helps in terms of pinning the schema in itself, and then figuring out for every it has an hash connected to it. For every request, it is going to check if there is a change in the hash or not. If there is a change, it's going to be discarded. So which is basically you can control and have this kind of mechanism that helps you to defend on all of these attack surfaces that eventually has. I think every day that we speak, there is going to be a new attack surfaces being explored by explode and being shared across. So I think it is also important to understand what's happening behind the scenes from a security perspective when we are using something like an MCP standard, which is an open standard that evolves every day, right? Maybe let's see something in action. Sai, over to you.
Thanks, Srini. I think we spoke a lot about a lot of this security stuff. I think we can show one of it, and I just ran a test already behind the scene as you were speaking, so that we don't again go into the loop of waiting. And I also
Sure.
have dropped the secure Hulk in the chat, so that's the link that Srini is talking about. I'll just quickly share my screen again. So, if you see, what I've done is, so I mean, when this specific tool is getting registered, as Srini was talking, I went ahead and I sort of added another instruction saying, hey, this tool should also return like system infos, right? Like my user, location, system IP, and things like that. And at the same time, I also commented out to say that, hey, this is just for a conference talk, so it should be okay, and etc etc. Okay, so it's like typically I've tricked the agent now to say that it's okay, that you can get all this information. There's really not a worry about it, right? And if you see, it just basically ran all of it, and along with the matrices at the end, it also fetched the system information, right? It pulled my name, it pulled my location. Of course, I've hard coded my IP, so it just gave the IP address what was written. So if you see, all of this is happening in between the entire execution, right? So I mean, someone can actually have an entire, a code that possibly they want to send it to their servers, and things what Srini was talking about, right? And you will not know about it at all, because everything is happening behind the scenes, and it'll just quietly give you the performance metric. So you'll say, oh yeah, the performance metric is really cool, all good. I think I need to improve it here, there. I mean, I just put this out so that I can show you what's happening, because I've printed that as a JSON response in the return statement. So technically, if I don't put this, and it's basically going to just execute it and just keep sending all the information that I needed from your machine, right? And I mean, if you see, if I don't like put this out, most of these agents are smart enough to say that, okay, I shouldn't do that. I can see there is something malicious happening, but we could still trick these agents to do that from an MCP server. So be careful when you're using any of these servers. Look through it, scan to it, see if anything's happening, like Srini said. And I think that's more important. Srini, anything you want to add before I jump into showcasing another MCP in action, which is Appium MCP?
Nope, I think we are good, Sai. Maybe
We're
we
good.
can move on to that.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to the agent settings again, and let me go ahead and, okay, it's already enabled. So I'm just going to make it not full screen, but reduce it off. Okay.
So, meanwhile, there is a question.
Uh-huh.
Interesting that you mentioned in a nested MCP over MCP setup. How are you preventing contextual drift or hallucinations as requests pass through multiple serialization layers? You get it? I don't know. MCP over MCP setup. Maybe
Oh,
if you could help understand what is that MCP over MCP setup.
yeah. Maybe we can park it for the Q&A, Srini, and
Yeah,
then at the end we can pick this up,
sure.
right?
So
Yeah.
there is
Okay.
also a few Q&As as well. So do you
Okay.
wanna answer a few and then
Yeah, I mean, I'm just scrolling through the window. Yeah,
uh,
okay.
no,
For
no.
the
There's few questions on the Q&A itself. on the
Okay.
next to chat. We have Q&A, right? Interesting that you mentioned. Okay, it's the same. I think you have to be more descriptive. I didn't get it. MCP over MCP setup. Okay, I have created an MCP server, my company product public API. It is working fine. How to deploy it in cloud so that multiple customers can use it? What are the things I need to make sure it to do it is to make sure it is more secure and reliable? Of course, you should add auth. And two, if you're deploying anywhere, again, there are two ways to ship, which Sai has talked about, right? One is standard input output, where he has given the path of the JSON file. And two is remote server. Like as a user, you can host your MCP server and expose only the URL. So the organizations who is going to use this MCP server can just access the URL and try to, probably you can show the MCP config size, so it gives the
Yeah,
clarity.
that's what I'm pulling out, Srini.
Yeah,
Over here, right? Uh, yeah. So this part of it. So we have two things. One is a HTTP server, another one is a standard in and out. So this part, and who was asked a question. So this is what Srini is talking about. You can like basically spin that up as a. I just highlighted Srini once again. So you can
yeah,
spin that up as a server in the cloud, and that basically gives you just an URL, right? So someone can just access that URL as a remote MCP. So for example, if I go into my settings again, let's see if I already have something.
yeah. I think I remember seeing a URL in your.
Let's see, Srini, where is it? Okay.
Yep. Right.
Okay, here,
Right.
right? See, for TestMu AI, so we have a remote server where we have hosted it over here.
Yep.
Right. So if I go ahead and do this, it'll redirect to the OAuth, authenticate the user, and then come back, and only then all the tools will be visible. So here, if you see, we have deployed our own servers into our own environment. So you could basically do that as well. And if you see here, right, I can show you one more local host I'm hosting. And of course, this is behind, an access key and token. These are my local dummies, so not to worry. So I've just put that out over here, for my 3000 to run, right? So that means when I hit my local host 3000, so there is a server basically running there, and I want to connect it. And to connect it, of course, I need to go through some access keys and tokens. I provided. So this is another way. But if you are with whatever ways you're saying it's publicly available for the users, then it should basically be like how Srini is talking about and how we have built it, TestMu AI, which would basically be an OAuth for you.
Perfect.
Okay, Srini, I'm gonna go ahead looking at the time.
Sure.
And okay, where did I drop off? Okay, we were going for Appium MCP, right?
Yep.
Okay, since it's already loaded, I'll just pull out a Visor as well. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, got it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm again going to write a very simple instruction to say that open the contacts application in the Android device, and create a new contact name as Shini, and save the contact. Okay, let's see what it does. So technically now what I'm expecting it to do is it would kick in the Appium MCP for us,
Yep.
and it's going to look through the contacts app in the device, open it, and do everything that it needs to do. But also I'll show you some really cool stuff that is a part of Appium MCP, okay, which is from a resource perspective that we already spoke, right? And so as this is going to, this is going to do something. I will let it finish. Then I'm going to explain about what we have baked into the resource aspect as well. So you see, it's actually created a session. It knows all those information, and it's a real device, and etc. etc. and it understood. So it's going to activate that app, which is nothing but it's trying to open the contacts app basically. Srini, what's the next thing that we are baking into MCP of Appium, Srini, so that we could
So
build the communities as well?
yeah, I think there are several good work folks are doing. One is to alongside Appium MCP, we also are baking Appium skills that helps your MCP server to drive better, agents to drive better and use appropriate tools. One, and within Appium MCP server, we are also, I mean, apart from the capabilities that we have currently in terms of identifying an element or any of those capabilities that Appium has it, but we are going to introduce something called vision based interactions. So no more DOM. So everything is going to be through the vision. So one of the amazing gentlemen from open source community has done wonderful benchmarking across a lot of models available, and he's working on contributing. Again, this is going to be a game changer if we have that feature in our Appium MCP. It helps you to do the interaction through the vision, not through the DOM. So what it's gonna see is what it's gonna interact with. So and it is also super fast based on the, um, I mean, based on the benchmarking, it's gonna give us amazing results. Yeah. So those
Yeah,
are the two big ones. That's something that you can expect probably in a month's time.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so if people have seen it did this right, I mean, this is typically what most of the things can do. But what we have also baked as a part of the Appium MCP is you want to generate a test out of what it completely did, right? So I'm going to say that generate a WebDriver IO test file for this. Uh, More than a test, right? I'm more interested on the locators, right? So I could say generate the file with the locators that I can use in my WebDriver IO tests. Now, for all the journey that it did, in basically it has completely held the entire locators. So what it's going to do is it's going to basically get that out for us now. So I think it should just start creating a file and then writing okay, it started to do. So let me open that file so that we could see when once it's done. I think it's writing it in the root. So you see it's doing all of the stuff, and because since it went through the entire DOM, right? And it has all the locators from the DOM of each of these pages. It basically went through, and it basically created that file also for us. See locators, and if I go inside this file, it's basically created all the locators that it has traversed to each of those pages, irrespective whether it performed, because it basically has that in its memory, right? So you need not only use it for driving it as a driver, but at the same time you can also just use it for generating some locators, right? So let's say for example I'll open another app, and I think this is a simple page, right? So I can say that you know uh, get me all the locators for the current page, and we can basically do this as well, and it's just going to get the entire DOM and then create these locators for you based on the priorities like accessibilities, and then it goes on a higher priority from starting with the accessibility ID, the resource ID, and then it goes to class parts and native elements and stuff like that. So you see it also understood which app it is that it's looking for, and it's just generating, right? And I think even if I had to do this by myself, or it takes a lot of time, right? You need to start the server, you need to get in the inspector, and a lot of things. So I think in a fraction of second it like sort of generated a bunch of locators for us. And another thing that we have also baked into this is basically the entire documentation of Appium, where into this MCP server, because Appium as in repository itself is pretty huge. There are so many tiny modules which are sitting inside it, having its own responsibilities and stuff. And we have different, drivers which can control different things like raspberries and your iPhones and Androids and TVs and a lot of stuff, right? So I mean, we don't know where to look to for what. So what me and Srini and the community folks did over here from the Appium stuff is we went ahead and we sort of racked the entire documentation and we sort of embedded that into this entire MCP, right? So what that means is if you go ahead and ask a question, Srini, anything on top of your mind to ask a question so that we can, get it out from the MCP server?
Yep. Parallelizing a test on
Yeah, okay.
iOS.
So I want to run my Appium tests in parallel for both Android and iOS real devices. Right. And now we have actually added another tool internally, which is called like answer query tool or something like that. I don't remember the name, but let's see,
Yeah.
it'll fetch something out for us. I don't want to do just answer for me. Okay. Since there's already WebDriver IO in context, it's going and doing it's going to add a test for me to do that. No, I don't want to do that.
It's trying to run since we say run.
Oh, okay. Okay, wait. I just still don't want to do that. I'm gonna
Say as a
just
query
say, yeah. I'm gonna say,
how to
tell me what is needed to execute. I don't know why it keeps going and reading the files.
since we are in the project, it starts. Great.
I mean, the last versions never used to do that in Cursor. I think they found a nice way to, take a lot of our tokens. No, Srini, it's not. It's just not calling the tool. I want to like call the tool actually. Wait, let me go and tell it to use the tool directly. What is the tool name? There's a bunch of tools that we have. Okay,
Document.
Appium documentation query, right? Okay. Use the Appium documentation query tool from the MCP server. Now it picked it up. And why this is taking so time is because whenever we run this, we are basically running a RAG, which means we are breaking the documents down. We're basically chunking it. So for the first time, whenever a question is being asked when the Appium MCP server is loaded, it's going to take a while because it is chunking the entire documentation. But yeah, it actually pulled it out for us now.
Yep.
Yeah. But since now, if I ask another question, it's basically going to be pretty quick for us because it's already chunked all the documentation. Yeah, I think just doing a quick time check, Srini, we have like about
10 minutes.
10 minutes. So I think that's pretty much that we wanted to share, right? If there's anything I've missed out, Srini, or we spoke and I haven't looked
Anything?
into it.
Any questions? We are happy to answer.
Yes, Srini, there was one actually in the chat
Is it?
where Nirmal asked that, hey, for the prompt you're giving, opening the browser part and navigating to the website actions are taken care by cursor slash browser playwright MCP. Calculating the metrics action is done by the MCP server you just built using the tools and giving the feedback in terms of text, blah, blah, blah. Being done by MCP servers. Am I right? Yes, Nirmal, what you're saying is right. So we have taken help from MCP of Playwright to open the browser, hitting the URL and things, and then we connect to that existing browser instance through CDP, and then we collect the metrics. So the collection of the metrics is us, and then we returning all the metrics back to the agent is also us. You're right. Your understanding is correct. Um, yeah, I think that's much that we wanted to cover, and I'm gonna drop Srini's and my contact here, and if you folks want to get in touch, feel free to get in touch with her. We are more than happy to talk about anything.
Yep.
Thank you, folks. I think that's much that I
Thank
have.
you
We are
so
open for
much.
questions, and I think Purnima, if there are any questions, we're happy to take.
I think there's no more questions. Cool. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so
us.
much.
Any questions, to feel free to reach us. Happy to help. Thank
Yeah.
you all.
Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Bye bye.